Well, I'm back for another round, folks. I was very impressed with my last Bigfoot story that I told, my first and my only Bigfoot story that I've told. I'm very surprised at the comments from people around the world that have had Bigfoot stories. Um, I had no idea this was going to blow up and go like it did. I'm surprised and I'm happy about it at the same time. My story is something I just never told anybody. I didn't know how important it would be or could be. And going through all the comments one day, I noticed a guy down at Klamath, Oregon. He was a tow truck driver. Don't know the guy's name, but he was telling me, he said, when I worked for the tow company, he goes, we had several encounters with Bigfoot. So I thought, you're probably right. Depending on where in the world you are, some places I realize probably don't have Bigfoot. Some places do. We seem to have a lot of them here in the Northwest area, Canada, Alaska, all the way down to California and probably even further south than that. I'm not a Bigfoot guy. I'm not a Bigfoot researcher. Don't know much about it, but I've been searching stories now, looking at things and listening to tapes about the sounds and stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm pretty convinced now that it was a Bigfoot family or something that I heard that day. To my best of my knowledge, again, I didn't see anything. It was all just here. And I've had some people comment, well, what'd you see? What'd you see? I didn't see anything. I heard everything. The rocks flying through the trees. And these weren't small rocks. Like I said before, these were head size, big rocks. Because when they went snapping through the trees and breaking limbs off as they go through the trees, and then they fell down into the canyon, and you could just hear that rock going cluck, 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 as it was hitting the sides of the canyon walls, other rocks. Maybe you folks have never been out in the woods. Maybe you've never thrown a rock personally off a canyon or kicked one off with your foot. They make a horrendous noise going down that canyon when they're banging into other rocks. Sometimes the rocks will actually split when they hit another rock. So, for your knowledge, it does happen, can happen. So that leads me to another story. My Klamath, Oregon guy, when he said, well, haven't you ever ran into other situations? I did. I actually did. I believe it was back in 1984. I had started a fairly new job working for this tow company. I was actually a body paint man. I have been all my life. But this company couldn't keep tow truck drivers working for them because the pay wasn't very good. My boss was kind of a cheapo, didn't like to pay you a lot of money. And so our guys came and went. We'd lose guys left and right. So since I ran the body shop and I was there on a daily basis, he thought, well, I got this tow. I want you to come with me. And so sometimes he'd pay me to do it, and I'd go with him. But some of these tows, like I say, we'd spend a half a day or a whole day out in the woods. So he said there's a deer hunter stuck in the woods. He's way up in the woods, 20, 30 miles deer hunting in a clear cut. And he goes, I want you to go with me. We're taking two trucks up, a small truck and a big truck. We'll go see if we can't get this guy out. I said, okay, I'll go with you. So we went, got to this big clearing early in the morning, 6:30, 7 o'clock. Sun was just coming up. It was summertime. And I believe it was the summer of 1984 because he had just bought a brand new tow truck, an 84 Chevy 1-ton 4-wheel drive. And he thought, man, this thing's going to go anywhere, do anything. So he drove the truck out to this guy's pickup that was just buried up to its chassis in mud. And we got our truck turned around, barely, because we found out it was so muddy out there that even that 4-wheel drive truck, as heavy as it was, didn't want to cooperate in that mud. But he got the truck turned around, and he hooked on the other truck, and he went to move ahead, and he buried the truck, the new 4-wheel drive truck. And in the process, just about ripped the running boards off the truck because it was buried in the mud so deep. While we were goofing around doing all this stuff, I was looking up the hill, and it was a pretty 2-3 football courts long, up a hill of a clear cut. There was a lot of scrub brush around. Little trees were planted. New fir trees, Doug fir trees were planted in the area. And there's a lot of tree stumps. And as I was looking up the hill, I seen a tree right at the edge of the clear cut, and there was something poking its head out, like here's the tree, and it would stick its head out like this, and then it would disappear. Then it would go out this side, and then it would disappear. And then it did that for 20 minutes to a half hour, as I recollect. And I thought at the time, I thought, wow, I think there's a bear up there and it's hiding behind a tree. I said, it must be a cub just wondering what we're doing down here, you know. And I just kept my eye on it. I told my boss, I said, well, if that's a cub bear, then mama bear may not be too far behind. And he goes, well, keep an eye on it. So I said, okay. So we're working. This is going on for a half hour or so. We're trying to recover the truck, and we're hooking and pulling and making noise and cranking around. Well, I'm keeping my eye on that object up there, bear. I thought if that thing attacks us, we don't want to get ate out in the middle of the woods. Nobody ever find us. So as we're doing this, half hour or so goes by. All of a sudden, this bear, at the time I thought, walks around the tree on his two hind legs, and he's got a stick in his hand, and he's waving the stick. You know, I'm like, what in the world is that bear doing? I said, it looks like it's got a stick in his hand, and it's waving it. I go, that's just weird. Do bears do that? And so I'm watching it, and it did that for, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe. And in the meantime, I'm working. I can't just stare at this and keep my eyes on it the whole time. I'm moving around. I'm looking up there. I'll work a while, and I'll look back up. Seems to be staying up there, and I was happy about that. Pretty quick, I looked up, and the thing sat up on the stump, a tree stump right up there in the top of that clearing. And it still had a stick, and it was still waving its stick around. And I'm like, what in the Sam Hill is it? I told my boss, I said, that couldn't be Bigfoot, could it? And he goes, I don't know. He goes, I can't see that far. I go, boy, you're a great witness. So we just wrote it off. It was just a bear. We don't know. I mean, it was too far away. I really couldn't tell. But with it standing there waving the stick and then sitting and waving the stick, to me, now looking back, I can say it might have been a juvenile Bigfoot up there goofing off, keeping his eye on us. Never heard nothing. It was too far away. Couldn't hear it screech or scream or none of that kind of stuff. As far as I know, it did not. Didn't see any other Bigfoot if they were up there. Just that one guy. So that was kind of weird, you know. And I happened just to recant that story in my head, and I gave it a lot of thought. And I go, I probably ought to just tell it. Because here again, my last story that I told, I didn't see anything, but I heard. This one I seen, and I didn't hear. Now, I can't remember any other stories other than these two stories I've told you. My first story, and now this one. So, I don't know. You know, and again, I've told people that I wasn't looking for Bigfoot. I haven't ever went looking for Bigfoot. I stumbled across him 2 times now in my life that I know about. Now, I got a couple of funny stories to tell you about Bigfoot. You might get a kick out of. One was my youngest daughter. I don't know how old she was, 7, 8 years old. She was at a county, way out in the woods camp. And she was playing on the ground. She scratched around the ground, playing like kids do. And she found this tooth she thought was a Bigfoot tooth. And she come running up to Mom and goes, Mom, look, I found a Bigfoot tooth. Mom said it was just a rock. But in her mind, she thought it was a tooth. So there's your wannabe or could be and wasn't story. And I have one more. Back in the late 60s, my sisters were on their way through my neighbor's woods. He had a pretty good patch of Doug fir with a narrow dirt road through the woods, a kind of windy road. And he had a cabin out there. Cabin was an old cabin, been on his property forever. They were walking through the woods. They were on the way to the pond, neighbor's pond, to swim that day, hot summer's day. And as they were approaching the cabin, they seen something, and they thought it was Bigfoot. They go, oh, look, Bigfoot. He's at the cabin. I mean, you got to remember, this is like late 60s. And these girls were, I don't know, probably in their early teens, I would imagine, somewhere in that neighborhood. So they thought they saw Bigfoot. And they were adamant about it. They told my dad, hey, no, it's real. It's out there. So my dad thought, well, I'll go take a look. So he drove down there in his rig, gets down there, and there's nobody to be found. So he kind of hung around for a little bit, and come to find out, it was a homeless guy. He had moved into the cabin. I think he was there for a year or two, just living there. Nobody really, he stayed out of sight so well and hid so well that nobody knew he was there. But the guy was there, and he actually lived in that cabin for a while. The neighbor said he knew he was there, didn't care. Just leave him be. And so we did. We just let him be. He was just some old homeless guy. He wasn't Bigfoot. But in the woods, it was dark, it was shady, and the girls mistook him for a Bigfoot. So yeah, here again, things like that can and will happen, and they do. Not every story is a Bigfoot story. Even my story was this, whatever it was up in the hill. Maybe that really wasn't a Bigfoot. Maybe it was a bear. Didn't act like a bear. Hey, you tell me, right? You tell me. I don't know. So, like I said, I'm not a Bigfoot pro. I don't know nothing about them, but I guess I'm going to have to learn. I may be lucky enough just to run into another one someday. And if I do, I'm going to run like hell, just so you know. All right, everybody. Live your life carefully. I'm on the road. I'm not doing Cabin Time Oregon right now, but this is Cabin Time Oregon. No moose track. We'll get back to you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all your comments and all your kind words and what I've done so far. I appreciate it really, really a lot. It means a lot. Thank you.